In today's video, I want to show you a fun composition for a Zentangle tile, and it looks a lot more complex than it is. So if you just draw along with me, one line at a time, I know that you can do it. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to start with my 3.5 inch tile, and I'm going to do some of the traditional details here to get our area set up for us. We're going to put the 4 corner dots on. And this is done in Zentangle as a way to just get us started. Sometimes looking at that blank piece of paper, whether it's a tile or a big journal or whatever it is, it can be intimidating. We think, boy, what am I going to do? How am I going to get started? I don't want to put my pen and pencil to paper because what if I ruin it? Well, create yourself 4 simple corner dots and draw a nice gentle boundary for a border, and you've already gotten yourself started and hopefully got over that initial fear. And as I often do, just in my recent drawings anyway, it's certainly not something I do in all of my tangles. I'm going to divide my tile into halves, so to speak, so I can find that center and have a way to balance my composition in this case. I like a little bit of symmetry. It's obviously not always necessary, but it is something that's nice to do, and we're going to take advantage of that. So now that we've got those basic details, we've given ourselves that starting point, let's grab our pen and let's start to draw. We're going to begin with an orb in the center because we're going to be creating a floral design here in the center. So I'm starting with a little dot there, or not dot, but a little circle or orb. And then we're going to create some petals, and we're going to do these 4 of them. So we're going to put them into each of these 4 areas, but centered on that line. So I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to draw a very simple pattern. We go to that area here. We're going to go up and create 3 little bumps, and then come right back down to that center. And we'll turn our tile, and we're going to do the same thing from this direction. So let's create our 3 little bumps, back to the center. And we'll repeat this until we have our basic floral design in place. Now, just to give you an idea of sizing, take a look at that for a moment. You can see that each petal goes about halfway, or not quite halfway, to my border. And this just gives you some sense of sizing. If you look at the cap of my pen, it's not quite as wide or as tall as that cap, just to give you some idea of sizing. Now that we have that in place, let's add just a few little lines here to make these petals a little more interesting and lifelike. Little bends and folds in that petal. You can do 2 or 3 or 4 lines, whatever seems to look sensible to you. So now we've got that. And let's go ahead now and do part 2 of this little petal where the petals meet. We've got a bump on this side and a bump on that side. Kind of outside that edge, but moving outward this way toward the corner. If you think of it, we're going to draw just a gently curved line like that. We'll put a little line part way down and then a couple dots like that. And we'll do this to each of these 4 areas that are facing the corner. We'll just draw this line up, draw a line down, straight line, couple dots just for some visual details there. Don't get too worried about ultra precise sizing or comparative sizing. Just draw that shape in that area and you'll be all set. Our next step is to go from each of these pieces now, and we're going to create some Mooka shapes. Start maybe, halfway down at the most or up toward the top here, whatever, and we're going to bring this curved line out and back down. So what I did is I went out to my border And we'll do the same thing from this side. And those shapes can touch each other. They can be a small gap. They can completely overlap, whatever. But we just want them in this basic area here. So creating these same shapes in all 4 of these quadrants. You can see those 2 didn't quite touch. That's fine. I wanted a little variety so that it didn't look like they were just stamped into place here. But now what we want to do is create a little bit of an inner border that will be the opposite of the square here. So there's a corner here, so we're going to create an edge here. We're going to go roughly from this edge to this edge. So watch what I'm doing here. We're going to create a line that cuts right across. And then we're going to do the same thing again, all the way across here. Okay, so once we have that shape in there, let's aura that so it creates a parallel line just outside of that one we just did. Keep it somewhat thin. Don't make that really wide space between those lines. It can be different than mine, of course, but for spacing of what comes next, we don't want to make it too huge. Just like that. On each side of these Mookas, we want to create a smaller one that goes right out to the edge like this. Okay? Just like that. This gives it a little flourish there, and we'll do that on all 4 sides as well. Just creating it out to that border that we penciled in. So now our design, we'll zoom back out so you can see that. It's starting to take shape here. In each of these little nooks, some flux shapes. These are like little leaves. And I would maybe try to squeeze a couple in each of those areas. Just like that. And we'll do the same in these other ones as well. Creating a bit of symmetry, I understand, but that is part of what will make this drawing work for us, this particular composition. We just want to create a little bunch of these leaves around the base of this flower, or around the petals rather, of this flower. And now let's also add a few of these flux leaves up between our Mooka shapes. So we'll do one maybe in the center here, and then one on each side. Just adding that little flowery shape or botanical shape. And there'll be a little different spacing, a little different sizing required, but just fill that area right here. Or put them in that area. You don't necessarily have to fill the area. Okay. Now we need to draw some lines, some straight lines. What we want to do here is we're going to draw these in the background from the center to the corner. So we'll start with one line so we can see where that would go. I'll zoom in here. And then we're going to just aura that with some very tight lines, very close together, but just simply straight lines. So you might want to go a little more slowly if you're not used to drawing things like this. But you just draw that as though it goes behind the shape. And we're making a background pattern here that will, instead of just solid inking or something, we're going to use these little lines to create a more interesting background pattern. And what we'll do is we'll go all the way along our border down to this corner here. Now these kinds of lines they're not difficult at all. You can draw them very easily. You just have to be patient and take your time. And draw carefully and slowly. But it can take some time. So don't get frustrated or ahead of yourself or anything like that. All right? And now we're going to do the same. Turn it and the same thing on the same half. So each of the same sides here will have the same kind of background. Now, because these can take a while to draw, I may very well speed up this portion of the video. You can pause it if you need to while you're completing your own, or rewind as necessary, of course. But we just want to fill these areas. And don't worry if this outer edge isn't perfectly straight, because we will ultimately draw a border there. I'll give you that advanced little tip so you don't have to be stressed about it. And that will help take care or hide any imperfections in where our edges are. We want to enhance our line concepts here a little bit further. So on the same side of the drawing where our lines are, we're going to create lines down inside of here at an angle. We're going to leave a little bit of a gap. So we're going to start down maybe about where the top of these flux shapes are, give or take, and try to do, and we're going to go straight out to the corner of this inner border. Okay, I'll zoom in again now that we got that overview. But we're going to create the same kind of line pattern at this slight angle that's going to go diagonally behind this section of our drawing. We want to now create some contrast that helps this drawing to pop a little bit. So, but before we do that, let's draw in our final border. So let's go around the outside edge of our drawing here, just like this, and basically following our pencil line, but you can deviate from that, of course, if you need to. And we want to connect all of these pieces together so that we have a nice clean border. And you see how it helps to hide our uneven lines there. We've got that whole area now framed in, and let's create an additional line or on the outside here, giving it just a tiny little white space, if you will. And don't worry if your lines aren't perfectly straight. That's part of the joy of drawing. We're not using rulers, so we don't worry about we're not architects, right? We're artists drawing a pattern freehand, and that's the joy of it. So don't let those imperfections become a source of stress or frustration for you. All right, now that we've got this framed, we want to add, like I said, some dark ink. We're going to add it to the opposite areas that we did not fill the lines in. So we're going to just ink in all of these areas that are white on this spot. This will help create some contrast or drama, the Zentangle world calls that. Or maybe the rest of the world calls it that too, but I'm not sure. So we'll just acknowledge that part of it. So we're inking in just these white areas. Make our drawing pop a little bit, to make it have some boldness and contrast. And just like with the line drawing, I may speed up this section of the video for you, so feel free to pause or rewind or whatever might be helpful for you as you follow along. Now it's time to add some graphite, some shading to our drawing. So let's put away our pen and get our pencil, and let's begin the process here. So as I often do with the Mooka shape, I'm going to add some curved lines of graphite that once I blend it, it will help to give the illusion that there is some shape and dimension to these little pieces. And you might add just a tiny bit in these little ones if there's room, just to add some graphite in there. And I'm also, as far as the flux shapes, I'm going to add just a little bit of graphite in the corner, or the narrowest part of that, and we'll blend it outward to help. And so we'll add these little rounded pieces, little smiley faces, some people call it, just very lightly, because it doesn't take much graphite, depending on your paper. Of course, there could be some variables, but we just want to be able to create a bit of a shadow or a reflective look there. And again, down in here. And in our small ones, we'll just add a tiny bit as well. If nothing else, those would just add some shading to them to help them not look so bland, just sitting there on the page all white like that. And now as far as the center, we'll do the same with our flux shapes, just that little bit of graphite in the corners, or the base, or the narrowest part, however you'd like to think of that. And now I'm also going to add graphite around the edge here of these little flower petal shapes. And that'll help, that'll also take care of the shading right there. And let's do also maybe a little bit around the outside edge of that entire flower and its surrounding flux shapes. We'll create a little bit of a drop shadow that way, maybe that extends around this central piece. I think I'm going to add just a tiny bit in the center here, just to give a little bit sense of darker area around that center. And just subtly along those fold lines there, so to speak. What I am going to do is just add a little bit of a rounding there, which is when we just take an edge where two lines connect, or where they come together, and we add just a little bit of ink, and I think that might enhance. It's very subtle, but I think it might enhance how those look there a little bit against those lined backdrops. It's very subtle, but I think that helps. And we could, on these, we could create a slightly darker line around the outside edge there. Or the bottom edge, so to speak. And I think that will enhance the look of a shadow as well. It's very subtle, but it does change the look here. It just convinces the eye a little bit more easily that these shapes have dimension and that they're sitting above another portion of the drawing, in this case those lines. Well, there we have it, the end of our drawing for today. Thank you so much for joining with me today here in the Tangles and Tunes channel, and I look forward to seeing everyone again real soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.